nuclear rocket engines, roaring to life in the heart of Florida for over a decade. Welcome to Arthur Lee's Adventures. I'm Arthur Lee, and today marks the beginning of something extraordinary. Over the coming months, we're going to explore every single state in America, uncovering the hidden history that shaped our nation. And I couldn't think of a better place to start this epic journey than Florida, a state that's kept some absolutely incredible secrets. Growing up on a farm in Pennsylvania, I thought I knew American history pretty well. Boy, was I wrong. The stories I've uncovered about Florida will make you question everything you thought you knew about the Sunshine State. I've found 10 mind-blowing facts that range from fascinating to downright shocking. We'll start with number 10 and work our way up to the most incredible revelation at number 1. If you're new here, welcome to the adventure. That subscribe button helps more than you know. Trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming. Let's dive in. Coming in at number 10, the sponge capital of America. Now, when you think of Florida industries, you probably think tourism, oranges, maybe aerospace. But here's something that'll surprise you. Tarpon Springs was once the largest sponge diving port in the entire world. In 1896, a Greek immigrant named John Kokoris introduced Mediterranean diving techniques to Florida's Gulf Coast. And by 1905, this small town was harvesting 90% of America's natural sponges. We're talking about 200 boats and over 1,500 divers working depths up to 100 feet in those old hard hat diving suits. The industry was so successful that by 1938, Tarpon Springs had the largest Greek population per capita in the United States. These weren't just any divers either. Kokoris recruited experienced sponge divers from the Greek islands, particularly Kalymnos, bringing centuries of Mediterranean diving knowledge to Florida waters. Speaking of surprises, wait until you hear number 9, the Great Lighthouse Move. Picture this, it's 1894, and engineers are facing an impossible task. The Cape Canaveral Lighthouse, all 151 feet and 1,200 tons of it, is about to be swallowed by beach erosion. So what do? They move the entire thing. Not just tear it down and rebuild, they actually moved the whole lighthouse 1¼ miles inland. This was one of the first major lighthouse relocations in U.S. history, and the engineering was incredible. They dismantled it brick by brick, numbered every single piece, built a special railway system, and then rebuilt it at its new location. The whole operation took 6 months and cost $12,000, which might not sound like much, but that's serious money in 1894. The precision required was mind-boggling, and it worked perfectly. But that's just the beginning. Number 8 takes us to America's southernmost presidential retreat. Harry Truman established what became known as the Little White House at Key West Naval Station in 1946. And this wasn't just a vacation spot. This was where history was made. Truman made 11 official visits totaling 175 days during his presidency, and here's the kicker. On March 12, 1949, while staying at this tropical facility, he made the decision to join NATO. He actually signed the North Atlantic Treaty documentation right there in Key West. Originally, Truman visited on doctor's orders to rest and lower his blood pressure, but the Little White House became so much more than a health retreat. It was a functioning winter White House that hosted crucial diplomatic meetings during some of the most tense years of the early Cold War. Now things start getting really interesting with number 7, Florida's secret nuclear arsenal. From 1962 to 1979, deep in the Everglades, about 40 miles west of Miami, the U.S. military operated a classified Nike Hercules surface-to-air missile site called HM-69. And these weren't just conventional missiles. We're talking about nuclear warheads, hidden in America's most famous wetland. The installation was so secret that most local residents had no idea they had nuclear weapons in their backyard swamps. This was part of the Cold War defense system, designed to protect Miami and South Florida from potential Soviet bomber attacks. Can you imagine? Nuclear missiles sitting quietly in the Everglades for 17 years. After decommissioning in 1979, the site was abandoned and eventually became part of Everglades National Park. The land remembers what we forget, and sometimes what it remembers is pretty shocking. Would you have fallen for this next scam? Let me know in the comments because number 6 involves one of America's most notorious con artists. Number 6. Charles Ponzi's Florida Fantasy. Yes, the Charles Ponzi, the man who gave us the term Ponzi scheme. In 1926, at the height of Florida's land boom, just 2 years after being released from federal prison, Ponzi couldn't resist one more con. He claimed the federal government was about to hold a lottery giving away prime Florida real estate to war veterans, and he started selling certificates for this non-existent lottery. We're talking about swampland in the Everglades that he marketed as future prime real estate. Before being arrested, he sold over $2 million worth of these worthless certificates. That's about $30 million in today's money. This happened right in the middle of Florida's massive the 1920s real estate bubble, when land speculation had reached absolutely fever pitch and people were desperate to get in on the action. Ponzi knew exactly how to exploit that desperation. Ready for number 5? This one still amazes me. The hurricane with perfect timing. On September 18, 1986, the Great Miami Hurricane did something that created one of the most tragic cases of mistaken safety in weather history. This Category 4 monster generated a perfectly circular eye that passed directly over Miami Beach, creating an eerie 45-minute period of complete calm. During this calm, thousands of residents emerged from their shelters, thinking the storm had passed. They walked outside, surveyed damage, even started cleanup efforts. Then the eye wall returned with 150 miles per hour winds. The results were devastating. 372 people killed and $105 million in damage, which would be over $1.5 billion today. This hurricane was so destructive it effectively ended Florida's Roaring '20s land boom and caused numerous bank failures. The precision of that eye passing directly over Miami Beach turned a natural phenomenon into a deadly trap. We're halfway through, and honestly, the next 5 facts are going to blow your mind even more. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this next one in the comments. Number 4. The day Key West left America. April 23, 1982. Key West officially seceded from the United States, declaring independence as the Conch Republic. And they did it with style. Mayor Dennis Wardlow broke a loaf of Cuban bread over a U.S. Navy officer's head, symbolically declaring war on the United States. Then 1 minute later, he surrendered and immediately requested $1 billion in foreign aid. Now that's a story worth telling, but this wasn't just a publicity stunt. It was brilliant civil disobedience. The U.S. Border Patrol had set up a checkpoint on Route 1 that was treating Keys residents like foreigners entering the mainland. The checkpoint created massive traffic delays and was killing tourism. So Key West fought back the only way that made sense, by actually becoming foreign territory, if only for a minute. The protest worked, garnering national media attention and eventually getting the checkpoint removed. Buckle up for number 3, the railroad that defied physics. Henry Flagler's overseas railroad to Key West was so ambitious that engineering publications called it the 8th wonder of the world. Completed in 1912, this project required building 42 bridges totaling 17 miles in length over open water, including the famous 7-Mile Bridge. The numbers are staggering. 156 miles from Homestead to Key West, much of it over water and tiny islands. The project cost $50 million, which is equivalent to $1.4 billion today. Think about that. In 1912, with the technology they had available, they built a railroad across the ocean. They had to import thousands of workers and massive amounts of concrete and steel to remote locations with no infrastructure. The railroad operated successfully from 1912 until the Labor Day hurricane of 1935 finally destroyed much of the line. For 23 years, you could take a train from New York City all the way to Key West, Florida. We're in the top 2 now, and number 2 represents one of the darkest chapters in Florida history. The Rosewood massacre cover-up. From January 1st to 8th, 1923, an entire African-American town was systematically destroyed and its residents displaced. But for decades, it was as if Rosewood had never existed. The violence began with false accusations and escalated when white mobs from nearby Sumner attacked this prosperous community. At least 6 to 8 people were killed, the exact number is still disputed, and over 150 residents were forced to flee into the swamps. Here's what makes this even more tragic. It was covered up for 59 years. No one was ever prosecuted. The town was never rebuilt. It took a 1982 60 Minutes investigation to bring national attention to what happened, and it wasn't until 1994 that Florida paid $2.1 million in reparations to survivors and descendants. For 6 decades, an entire community's destruction was simply erased from official history. And now, the moment you've been waiting for. Number 1 is going to change everything you thought you knew about NASA and Florida. Number 1. NASA's secret nuclear rocket program. From 1959 to 1973, NASA operated one of the most classified programs in space exploration history right at Kennedy Space Center, the Nuclear Engine for Rocket Vehicle Application, or NERVA program. We're not talking about nuclear power for electricity. These were actual nuclear rocket engines designed to power missions to Mars. Over 14 years, NASA successfully tested 20 nuclear rocket engines, with some achieving thrust levels of 25,000 pounds. These engines ran on nuclear reactors that heated hydrogen propellant to over 4,000 degrees Fahrenheit. The program represented a serious attempt at nuclear space propulsion that could have revolutionized space travel. While the actual engine tests were conducted in Nevada for safety reasons, all the mission planning, vehicle integration, and program coordination happened right here in Florida. The program was terminated in 1973 due to budget constraints, but imagine if it hadn't been. We might have had nuclear-powered missions to Mars decades ago. As Neil Young once wrote about Florida, sometimes the most incredible stories are hiding in plain sight. From Greek sponge divers to nuclear rocket engines, Florida has proven it's anything but ordinary. These stories show us that the most fascinating history often happens in places we think we know well. Which of these facts surprised you the most? Drop your answer in the comments. I read every single one, and I'm genuinely curious about your reactions. If you want to discover more hidden stories like these, subscribe and hit that bell. I release new adventures every week exploring America's forgotten history, and we're just getting started on this 50-state journey. Next time, we're heading to a state with an even wilder history. Trust me, fact number 3 on that list had me researching for hours just to make sure it was real. Thanks for joining me on another adventure. Until next time, keep exploring and long may you run.